Police union leader Ed Mullins is no fan of the Reverend Al Sharpton, believes Mayor de Blasio may only serve one term as mayor of New York, and feels police officers are being thrown under the bus. Mr. Mullins, thank you for joining us tonight.
Happy to be with you.
Let me begin this way. I get the strong impression you are not a fan of Mayor de Blasio. In your opinion, is he a one-term mayor?
I tend to think so. At this point in time, he's been mayor of New York for almost a year, and I don't see any significant changes that he is trying to implement in New York.
Well, what's he doing wrong? Why are you such a critic of the mayor?
I see the mayor as a divisive individual. I see the tale of two cities, as he claimed, to be a tale of his city. I don't think the mayor is reflective of all the people in the city. You need to be reflective of the poorer people of the city, the people of color in the city, and minority communities. You need to do that. Any mayor needs to do that. But in the same aspect of it, he should be reflective of the other part of the city, the business part of it, the tax base, the horse and carriage people, charter school people. He should be supportive of that, because every mom, every dad wants their kid to get an education. And if the New York public school system isn't providing that, and you can show a history of charter schools that are providing that, so what's wrong with that? Is there only one form of medicine? If you can be cured of something, you should try an alternative.
I'm going to come back to the mayor in a second, Mr. Mullins, but you have taken a position recently that's, if you will, a bit odd to come from the police community. You have agreed with the grand jury in Staten Island, the finding of no indictment, but you've also said the city should consider independent prosecutors for cases involving police. Why?
Well, here's how I look at it. There is nothing more important to me than this country. This country lays the foundation for everything that we do. People come from all over this globe to be in this nation, and we're a nation of laws. So whether we agree or disagree with the grand jury findings, it's the system to which we live by. If an independent attorney, general counsel, attorney general would help to build bridges, then I think we should at least consider and explore it. And my reason being is that I see law differently. I see law almost as a science. I see it that there are rules of law, there are rules of evidence. So when you hear that, Dan Donovan was biased to a decision, or the DA in Ferguson, Missouri was biased to a decision, we're actually attacking credible individuals and their ability to hold their office. So if we were to bring in an attorney, another district attorney from another part of the state, and we had a lottery system and a pool, and we pull a name out of a hat, that person still has to process the grand jury or a trial based on the rules of law. And if it brings more integrity to it, if it creates a belief, the outcome's probably going to be the same. But if it creates the belief and the trust amongst people and communities and police, isn't that what we should be striving for? So we all are able to accommodate each other and live in this country, because that's what it's about.
So you can understand the frustrations of those that do not agree with this grand jury finding?
I understand the frustrations. But along with those frustrations, I understand the frustrations of a victim of a robbery where the police don't catch the perp who did it. I understand the frustrations of a mom who had her child abducted and was never found because she relied on the criminal justice system to protect her, okay? There are frustrations of people who've been arrested and gone to trial, and people would think that they're going to get a 25-year sentence, and they get a 7-year sentence for murder. And the victim's family is frustrated. But that's the system we live by. And we have to accept what the outcome is of these juries. There are a lot of people that weren't happy about the O.J. Simpson verdict. They weren't. But in the end, we have to accept that. We can't go out and burn stores and put communities out of business. We can't do that.
Let me quote, coming back to Mayor de Blasio now, let me quote what he said on ABC this week. Quote, "What parents have done for decades who have children of color, especially young men of color, is train them to be very careful when they have an encounter with a police officer."
Sad statement, embarrassing statement for the mayor of New York. The opportunity right now for the mayor of New York to take a role of leadership and build bridges is right at his doorstep. And statements like that become divisive. I've spoken to my children about dealing with the police and about dealing with people of color, because I grew up in a Catholic household. I grew up with a belief in being kind to the people that you grow up with and your friends. I've worked with people of color side by side in patrol cars and have been in dangerous situations with them. This isn't about color. This is about an American way of life and working together so that we can all go home to our families. When the mayor talks about his son is not a kid from East New York or East Flatbush, where there's double-digit homicides in the course of the year, and it's been continuous. He grew up in Park Slope. He grew up in a predominantly affluent neighborhood. He goes to private school. He's not the same as other kids that we're out there talking about. I've seen 2 kids killed 30 feet apart on Church Avenue in Brooklyn, and no one call up. You want to go tell their moms, you just lost your son on a beautiful July day with 1,000 people in the street? I've seen it happen. So there's a problem, and the problem that exists is about education. It's about building bridges. It's not about being divisive.
Your members, several thousand strong, if the Democratic National Convention were held here again, would get a lot of overtime pay. But yet you wrote a letter to the DNC urging them not to come here. Why? And isn't that counterproductive?
It's not always about money, Dominic. Sometimes there's bigger pictures. And, we had the Republican convention here in New York back in, I think, 2004. And looking back, I wish they didn't come here. It didn't serve the members of the NYPD well. We had to deal with demonstrations. Police officers got injured. One was hospitalized. There's been numerous lawsuits. So right now, the NYPD is under attack, as law enforcement is across the country. To bring a convention to Brooklyn and put all the members of the NYPD back in a hotspot so people can sit here and second guess everything that we do and videotape and say this officer did this and we're going to sue and we're going to make complaints. Why would you want to put your people in harm's way? It's not always about money. And for the mayor to say the revenue that it's going to generate for this city, are we calculating the revenue for this city on a one-term event? Is that what his financial plan is for the city, to wait for this convention to come to generate $100 million?
I close this way. Critics will argue that perhaps you have a sour tone towards the mayor because your union members do not have a contract. But you've also taken the mayor to task for granting, quote, a public platform to the loudest of the city's anti-safety agitators. What do you mean by that? Who are you referring to?
I'm referring to Al Sharpton, who, in my view, and I think the view of thousands, if not possibly a couple million people in the city, believe that he's a divisive individual. And I think that there are so many people of credibility to bring to that table, to ask what their opinions are, and to seek solutions, that you ride the coattails of an individual who is really driven by negativity and acts as a naysayer to everything. If we look at Al Sharpton's track record, over the years, he's just really known for having a big speaking box, and that's pretty much it. You don't see, he hasn't built schools, he hasn't built hospitals, he hasn't educated children, and he hasn't built bridges. He's no Dr. King. So when you look and you look at the value that Mayor de Blasio places on this, I question why. I mean, New York City is the city, it's the capital of the world. And this is your stage, this is your platform, this is your game plan of where we're going in the future for this city. I'm concerned for the city, to be quite honest with you.
Mr. Mullins, we thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Always a pleasure.
Dominic, in successive days, you've talked to both the head of the PBA, Pat Lynch, and now for the Sergeants equivalent with Mr. Mullins. Clearly, they don't like this mayor, right?
Or Mr. Sharpton.
Or Mr. Sharpton.
At all.
We kind of knew that one. But my question is, in the Akai Gurley case, do you think that they're going to be as vocal in their defense as they were with Pantaleo?
Well, we can't, for lack of a better term, we can't jump the gun in the Gurley case. Pat Lynch is right. The facts are not in yet. All of this media speculation about what happened, we don't know.
Facts are in, but we don't know the series of calls yet. But we do know what happened in that stairwell.
Here's all we know. A man apparently was on the staircase. The officer shot him. We don't know if his gun was already out officially. We don't know if there was even a trigger on the gun. We don't know. And so Pat Lynch is right about that. We have got to wait for the investigation.
All right. Well, we're going to find out on Saturday. There's a rally in Washington. We're going to be at that on the national level to deal with this subject. We'll talk much more about that tomorrow night on this program. But thank you to the panel here. When we come back, I'll do some Hudson Valley headlines for you. Stay with us.